Martin Fryer gained a wealth of experience while working in various countries for some 30 years. He's been bridging the UK and Korea ever since he was named Director of the British Council Korea in 2013. The British Council Korea is a form of genuine communication, connecting people of diverse fields. Let's meet Director of the British Council Korea, Martin Fryer, on today's Heart to Heart. Hello and welcome to Heart, Mr. Martin Fryer. It's a pleasure to have you joining us on our show. Could you maybe begin by saying hello to our viewers that are watching our program?
Hello, and it's great to be here.
Now, I understand that this is a very special year, not only for Korea, but also for the UK, for its UK-Korea 2017-18. Could you maybe begin by telling us in detail about the UK-Korea 2017-18?
Well, UK-Korea 2017-18 has a slogan, Creative Futures. And this is because what we're trying to do is look at the way in which the arts, science, education needs creativity and innovation to thrive. And Creative Futures brings our two countries together in those areas. We're very interested in the way we develop new audiences for UK arts, for example, but also the way in which artists can collaborate and cooperate, and arts institutions can do the same. And what we're hoping to do is across Korea, in fact, we've already started, have events which bring UK events to Korea, but at the same time bring artists and arts institutions together for discussions on what that future is for a more creative, innovative society.
Yes. I understand that the UK-Korea 2017-18 is divided into or consists two parts. There is the Korea season in the UK and the UK season in Korea. Now, cultural events and exhibitions and activities are all planned in both countries throughout year 2017, and it'll continue until next year. And I heard that the London Symphony Orchestra opened the season in Korea. This was in February of this year. So could you tell us about that?
The London Symphony Orchestra gave a concert in the Seoul Arts Centre to launch the season.
Yes.
And the LSO, as we call it, of course, is one of the world's great orchestras. It's very much associated with the capital of the UK, London, but it also is very international. What we did was use it as a way of doing a quite glamorous launch. Obviously, it's a great orchestra. Daniel Harding was the conductor. But to make sure that it fits into our whole idea of promoting contemporary culture, we asked that the LSO perform a contemporary British work. And this was a new work by the British composer Mark Anthony Turnage, a trumpet concerto, which got a fantastic response from the Korean audience. Normally, the big orchestras that come here are quite cautious in their programming because, of course, their tickets are very expensive.
Yes.
So I think part of our role was to say, we think that the audience is ready for a piece of 20th century contemporary music by a composer who most people in the audience wouldn't have heard of, although he's well known in the UK amongst classical music fans. And I'm pleased to say it was a great success. It was a sellout and a nice way to start the whole season off.
Yeah, sure. And I also heard that there was an event to introduce the British ceramics culture. That this was at the Gyeonggi International Ceramic Biennale. Could you also tell us about this?
The Gyeonggi Ceramic Biennale is probably the world's largest and one of the world's most prestigious such events. And that's because, of course, Korea has a very strong ceramics tradition.
Yes.
And I'm very pleased to say that a British artist won the top prize in 2015 and returned this year to do a solo exhibition at the invitation of the biennial. And that exhibition looked very much at the state of contemporary ceramics in the UK. Very interesting. I encourage people to go and see it, because what he did was look at the way in which the decline in the traditional industries is impacting on societies, on the social fabric of a city like Stoke-on-Trent, which is our equivalent of Icheon or Gwangju in Gyeonggi province. It's the home of traditional ceramics. But modern artists are taking a look at an industry that's changed completely and looking at ways in which contemporary art can use ceramics to say something about the modern world. And what he did was he took objects that he found in the abandoned factories, the molds, the silicon molds that made the forms for mass-produced but very high-quality ceramics, and told a story through those of the decline in the industry, the change in the industry. So it's a sort of conceptual approach, an installation piece, which I think shows how adventurous the Biennale is. Of course, it has a lot of traditional work, but it's also looking at how artists today are reflecting on what's changed. And I think that's the same in Korea, because in Korea, traditional ceramics are luxury goods, they're expensive.
Yes.
Anything mass-produced is produced elsewhere. But it's still, of course, a wonderful art form, and it's something that the two countries share. So I'm very proud that he did such a good job. And he met a lot of Korean masters and other artists to start doing collaborative work.
Now, what were the people's reactions to British ceramics? What did they think about it? What did they say about it?
Well, they were expecting, of course, traditional tea pots and cups and saucers from our strong tea tradition, and Wedgwood and Royal Doulton, of course, are names that are known here in Korea and all over the world. So I think they were a bit surprised to see a more conceptual approach, but he drew them in. He invited a woman who's retired from the industry now, who makes bone china flowers, to demonstrate how that industry used to work, and they're no longer made because it's all mass-produced elsewhere, not in the UK. But it was very, very moving, because what he was doing was showing how her skills, which are now redundant in the modern industry, can still be of interest to new artists. And so people came into the exhibition, saw her doing the work, and talked to her about the skills and how she feels about the decline in the industry, but in quite a positive way, because she was interested that young artists wanted to know how things used to be and find ways of responding to that through their work today. So the audience at Gyeonggi may have been a bit surprised, but I think it was charmed by what they saw. And I think in the contemporary arts today, particularly in the plastic arts, in visual arts and ceramics and sculpture, as you know, there's a lot of conceptual work which is meant to make you think, and it's not just about the beauty of the object, it's about the story behind the object and a commentary on what's happening in the world today.
And I guess it can be interpreted in many different ways, of course, but yes.
안녕하세요. 2017-2018 한영 상호교류회 문화대사 임수정입니다. 한국과 영국이 문화예술적으로 교류하고 꾸준히 성장하고자 마련된 의미 있는 행사에 참여하게 돼서 정말 기뻐요.
The long and complex molecules of the...
I happen to have the results right here. The first area is the caudate nucleus. It helps us expect and detect rewards.
비판적 접근해서 인물의 심리를 어떻게 표현하는 것이냐에 대한 작업으로
새로운 각도, 그다음에 음악적 이해에 대해서 좀 알게 되는 시간인 것 같아요.
I just hope that in the future you will be making some fantastic international contemporary opera. Yes, very good.
Now, how much did you know about Korea before you came? Because I think I read somewhere with an article, you've worked in many parts, many parts of the world. Argentina, Turkey, there was Spain, Brazil, Thailand, Malaysia, for example. And I read that you intentionally didn't try to find out about the country before you went. What was it for you before you came to Korea? Did you learn about Korea before you came? How much did you know about Korea before you actually came here?
Not a great deal.
Yeah.
In my job, you have to very much focus on the country you're in. Mm-hmm. And you're going to be there for 3-4 years, and you need to immerse yourself. If you start thinking about the next country, because we usually know where we're going about 6 months to a year beforehand.
I see.
If you do that, you run the risk of beginning to lose interest in the country you're in. And that's not good for your job, because you need to be very engaged with the place that you're working in.
I see.
So it tends to be that you take a kind of crash course when you arrive and immerse yourself in the new place. I knew very little, to be honest, about Korea. That's not unusual in the UK, because our history tends to deal much more with the countries that have a long association with the United Kingdom.
Yes.
Of course, many of these are former colonies, part of the British Empire. So Korea was rather ignored in the history books. And also, I suppose, at the time when I was at university, Korea was not promoting itself internationally. Of course, it had other priorities at that time. I also remember seeing Korean drummers in a TV documentary and going to a performance in London of Korean drumming, the traditional drumming. But apart from that, I didn't know very much. I should mention, though, that when I was a young man in London, the great violinist Kyung Hwa Chung was making her debut. It was a famous occasion where she took over from Isaac Perlman to perform with the London Symphony Orchestra, because Isaac Perlman was ill. And that was an extraordinary moment where this talented young Korean violinist made a huge hit in London. So, of course, I was very aware that she was Korean, but knew very little about the culture that she came from.
So you've been working as the director of the British Council Korea since September of 2013, I understand. What would you say is the most unforgettable or most rewarding work you've done since your post here in Korea?
I choose a couple of examples. I found it particularly rewarding to work with the Tongyong International Music Festival. This, as you know, is a contemporary music festival, and they do performances of chamber operas. And this is a format that works very well in small spaces in the UK. And 2 years ago, a British group from Wales, the Music Theatre Wales, presented a work called Greek by a contemporary British composer. Now, why I found that very rewarding is because this was a very good example of collaboration, where the director and the singers came from the UK, but the players in the small chamber orchestra were all from Korea. And they only had a few days to rehearse and work together, and the result was excellent. And everybody was very happy about it. Great example of good collaboration. And it led to the festival inviting Music Theatre Wales back this year. And as part of UK Korea 2017, they did a new presentation of a new work called Golden Dragon, quite hard-hitting, around the theme of immigration and of the isolation and loneliness. It was all about a Chinese boy who had come as an illegal immigrant into some European country. You don't know which European country. So it's kind of a universal story of the distance that small boy felt from his family and his origins and the difficulties he had in adapting. And this done through contemporary opera, right, was very exciting.
Yes.
So I felt that through that collaboration between the playing musicians and the UK singers, you got a really nice relationship building up. And it's a very good example of how skilled classical musicians are in Korea. And my second example happened a few years ago when Korea was invited to be the market-focused country for the London Book Fair. The London Book Fair is one of the world's great book fairs, along with Frankfurt and a few others. And each year it focuses on one country. Korea worked with the British Council to develop a program for the visitors to the fair, most of whom are there for commercial publishing work,
I see.
but are also very interested in reading and books, and had an opportunity to meet Korean authors, many who have not been to the UK before. And it was very exciting to see the audience response to writers in the flesh, as people like to meet the writer.
Sure, yes.
And we did everything from promoting a webtoon artist, Tae-hoo Yoon, who's very well known here, but as yet not so well known in Europe, to more famous writers like Hwang Sok-yong and Han Kang and Lee Mun-yeol. And yes, I mean, I just felt it was a great moment because clearly Britain as a culture that has been promoting itself around the world for a much longer time, our writers are probably much better known and more translated. But Korea is beginning to emerge as a country where, through translation, its contemporary work and its 20th century writing is attracting an audience. And I felt great that we were able to be part of that promotion, because our work is not one way. It needs to be a two-way street. It needs to have an element of mutuality in it to really work. And that, of course, came before the moment when Han Kang won the Man Booker International Prize.
It was just before. I see.
Yes. And her work was beginning to attract an audience, but of course, by winning the prize, she's become internationally famous.
I see. So you have been working hard, and you're still working very hard to promote British culture to Korea, and of course, vice versa. Now, you've just mentioned a couple of names of Korean authors, and I was told that you're interested in Korean literature. Is there maybe a particular book or a writer-author that you're interested in right now? Most recently?
Well, recently, I've been reading quite a lot of Hwang Sok-yong. And The Old Garden, which is the English translation of the title. I'm afraid I've forgotten the title in Korean. It's a very powerful and moving book, and that attracted me to read other Korean authors. I'd like to read more of Lee Mun-yeol. But there's an author, Kim Yong-ha, who has been to the UK. He was part of the delegation that went to the London Book Fair, who I've not read yet, so I'm looking forward to reading some of his work. I know he's very popular with young readers in Korea.
Yes.
And of course, Han Kang, we're very excited to know what she's going to publish next.
All right. Now, many projects are planned for the Korea season in the UK. Now, this will be starting in July of this year. So the UK season in Korea started in February, will continue up until March of 2018, just before the Winter Olympics. And the Korea season in the UK will start in July of this year, and I believe it will continue up until June of next year. Now, is there a Korean culture or art that you would like to particularly introduce and to promote to the British people?
It will be the job of the Korean Ministry of Culture and the Korean Cultural Centre in London to select what is promoted. Personally, I think contemporary dance from Korea is an area which I'd like to see featured because there is very good work here, very powerful, strong work, and not very well known in the UK. Your music traditions, such as pansori and changguk, are also very strong and emotional and powerful. I enjoy them here. I think they have to be interpreted to a UK audience because they are so different. And there are musicians who, of course, are doing that. The other day, I went to a performance by Lee Hee-moon, who I think is very good at fusing modern music and jazz in this particular project with the traditional pansori.
Oh, I see.
So I think it needs a little bit of fusion and interpretation to present to British audiences.
Yes.
But as a fan of pansori, I think it will make people really sit up and understand that, again, there's a very strong tradition that they may not know about, very expressive, but it has to be, I think, delivered to a British audience in a way which they can easily understand.
Yes.
In its very raw form, I think it's quite hard.
Yes, I guess perhaps for people to first, experience traditional, Korean traditional music, that would be a lot easier for people to kind of gain an interest, and then later on maybe they could get a feel for that raw traditional Korean music. I would also like to ask about your aspirations. What are your aspirations as the director of the British Council of Korea?
I think number one is to have created what we call sustainable, long-lasting partnerships through this year of very concentrated activity. We've been successful in raising funds to make the season, make the festival work. It's going to mean lots more contact between artists and arts institutions between the two countries. And if that leads to a long-lasting, continuing relationship between a certain number of artists and institutions, then I feel I will have achieved something. It's an acceleration of an already good relationship, but really growing it. And the other achievement is our work teaching English, which is, we do it here in Seoul. Currently we have 5 centres. We will be opening a new centre in Jamsil in June. I'm also very pleased that we and the team who run the English Centre and all the teachers have a product that is, it has to compete with other hagwons, other after-school institutes in Korea, and it has successfully done so in the last few years. And as a result, we can grow, we can invest in more centres. So I'm very pleased with that.
Now, this reminds me to talk about learning a foreign language, learning English, learning just a foreign language. We previously had Kong Sung-jae, Korean Billy, on our show. Are you aware of Korean Billy? Have you watched his YouTube videos?
I have.
Yes.
I became aware of Korean Billy because British television discovered him. They heard about him because, as you may know, he learns dialects from different regions of the UK, including dialects that I wouldn't understand, so he interprets them. I applaud him because what he's done is he's made thousands or tens of thousands of Koreans who are learning English better understand the diversity of the language in the UK.
What did you just say?
That brachi was bosla.
Breakfast.
Yeah.
Brachi.
Yeah. And boss. Boss means awesome.
Awesome.
Actually. Yeah. And Liverpudlian people usually just say la at the end of the sentence. That actually means lad, and that means mate.
We hope that all the projects and the programs organized for the UK Korea 2017-18 are carried out as planned, and also that the joint year will encourage more creative collaboration between arts organizations as well as artists. in the UK as well as in Korea. Thank you once again for your time, and it was a pleasure once again. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.